Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Phil and welcome to Grounded, the series which looks at airlines of yesteryear. This episode will take a look at Little Red from Virgin Atlantic. In 2011, Virgin Atlantic lost out on acquiring the struggling BMI, British Midland International, to their much larger rivals British Airways. Virgin had offered far less than half of what BA had offered in the hope that their smaller bid would still be attractive, as they had expected far less regulatory tape holding up the deal. When you consider that Virgin didn't operate any short-haul flights and had pretty much relied on BMI for their feeder traffic, it makes little sense that Virgin had taken such a gamble on what was an important acquisition. As British Airways already held a massive 43% of the slots at Heathrow, the regulatory authorities imposed several demands on the airline to allow the merger to proceed. The one that's key for this story is that BA had to hand over 14 of these slots. 12 of them were snapped up by Virgin Atlantic. In December 2012, Virgin announced that they were going to offer domestic flights from Heathrow, with their initial destinations being Manchester, Edinburgh and Aberdeen. The Irish flag carrier Aer Lingus would provide the aircraft and crews for the Virgin project, though the cabin crew were effectively subcontracted rather than employed directly by Team Shamrock. 4 Airbus A320 aircraft were painted up in the standard Virgin Atlantic livery ready for the launch, and in Virgin Atlantic tradition were given names. There was Tartan Lassie, Maggie May, Rosie Lee and Queen of the Cobbles. On the 1st of March 2013, the airline was officially named Virgin Atlantic Little Red, which is cute but a bit of a mouthful, so most folks just called it Little Red. The launch was rather subdued considering that this was a Richard Branson venture, though he had something lined up for a few weeks later. Services began on Sunday the 31st of March 2013, with the Manchester route launching a week ahead of Aberdeen and Edinburgh. The latter of which was where most of the launch publicity took place, with the bearded one sporting a red tartan kilt posing next to the aircraft at a windswept Edinburgh airport. To be fair, we expected nothing less. What we didn't expect was for the kilt to get lifted, revealing the words "stiff competition" written on the front of Beardy's Y fronts. Little Red would offer 26 daily flights across its short network, with Aberdeen served 3 times a day, Manchester 4 times a day and Edinburgh 6 times a day. The aircraft themselves were in an all-economy class configuration with 174 seats at 3 abreast. Despite the lack of Virgin upper-class cabin, Little Red did offer 23 kilograms of checked luggage and complimentary snacks and drinks, with a hot breakfast served on the early morning flights. The airline also partnered with various brands to supply exclusive products on board, including Iron Brew, Krispy Kreme donuts, Rude Health granola bars, and aeroplane-shaped crisps from Tyrrell's. I'm not really sure if they had Iron Brew exclusively though, as I thought it was the law to be served on any flight to and from Scotland. Virgin had said that Little Red would deliver the Virgin Atlantic rock and roll lifestyle, and come August 2013 they delivered on that alright when they announced Little Red Live. Their spin on in-flight entertainment was live in-flight stand-up comedy on flights to and from Edinburgh to coincide with the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, with live acoustic musical acts taking place from September. Virgin Atlantic CEO Craig Krieger was interviewed by the Financial Times in August 2013, where he described Little Red as progressing satisfactory, however admitted that the airline had room to grow. Virgin had always kept its cards close to its chest with regards to their short-haul operation, though throughout the life of Little Red there was speculation at just how well it was doing. Little Red continued to plod on until the UK Civil Aviation Authority published their annual figures in June 2014, when it was revealed that shockingly Little Red didn't just have an appalling load factor of 37.6%, but it was actually the worst in the industry. To put that into perspective, on comparable routes, British Airways had a load factor of 76.9% and EasyJet had 77.8%, though it is worth noting that EasyJet didn't serve Heathrow, nor did they fly between Manchester and London. Virgin's response was that the 2014 load factor at that point was considerably higher than the 2013 average. There was some irony in the timing of all this, however, as just a month earlier Krieger had been interviewed by the Daily Telegraph, where not only did he refuse to reveal Little Red's load factor, but rather bashfully said that rumours of the service's demise have been greatly exaggerated. This wasn't the end of Little Red though. Virgin had already stated that they were prepared to take a loss on the project whilst it gained brand awareness, and that these losses would be supported through the long-haul flying at Virgin Atlantic. The Virgin Atlantic CEO had said in his 2014 interview that the airline's losses would have been far lower without Little Red, but didn't elaborate. Despite this, Little Red continued operating as normal and generally had positive feedback from passengers. It was in September 2014 that the Sunday Times leading story in the business section reported that Virgin were planning on suspending Little Red. Once again, the tiny carrier was subject to speculation, but on this occasion the Virgin Group had remained very quiet and didn't reply nor respond to the story. 1 month later, on Monday the 6th of October, Virgin officially announced that they were closing down the Little Red operation, just 18 months after launching the venture. Virgin's official statement claimed that the airline had benefited consumers, but that the odds were stacked against them from the outset, with both Richard Branson and Virgin Atlantic CEO Craig Krieger blaming the European Commission for not giving them enough slots to compete with BA, as well as the typical bashing of British Airways that we've gotten used to over the past 30 years of Virgin's existence. The final Manchester flight took place on Saturday the 28th of March 2015, though the Scottish routes would continue on for a little longer, with both finishing on the 26th of September, bringing the Virgin Atlantic Little Red adventure to a close. So, what went wrong? Well, I don't really know where to begin with this one. The short answer is that Little Red didn't live up to its expectations and was losing too much money. Little Red had an appalling load factor throughout its existence, the worst in the industry, with its aircraft on average flying over half empty. With such a small load factor, it was hard for the airline to make money, and while Virgin Atlantic had said they were prepared to cover Little Red's losses until the airline gained brand awareness, it could only sustain this for a while, as Virgin Atlantic itself wasn't in the greatest of financial health. According to industry insiders, Little Red's losses could have been between £2 and £3 million a week, and this would have surely doomed any airline in the long run. The longer answer is a bit more complicated than that and involves a closer look at Virgin Atlantic itself. Virgin has dabbled in short-haul flying before and arguably has had little success, at least in the UK. For a brief spell in the 1980s, Virgin Atlantic had a go at short-haul flying from London's Luton Airport. Initially, they used a BAC 111 from British Airways, and then a Vickers Viscount turboprop wet leased in from British Air Ferries, and later used Boeing 727 trijets operated by Club Air serving destinations in the Netherlands as well as Dublin. Then there was Virgin Sun, a very short-lived charter airline which was part of a failed attempt at expanding the Virgin Holidays business into European destinations. Virgin Atlantic did serve Athens from both Heathrow and Gatwick for a number of years from 1995, initially using an Airbus A320 and then upgrading it to an Airbus A321 in the year 2000 until the route was axed following the September 11th attacks. Over in Belgium there was Virgin Express, originally a tiny leisure airline which was acquired by the Virgin Group in the mid-90s and moulded into a low-cost carrier which at the height of operations had 22 aircraft. Virgin Express would eventually be sold to and merged into the incumbent national airline to become Brussels Airlines. Virgin Atlantic is an anomaly of sorts. It's a long-haul airline which has no feed of its own, instead having to rely heavily on point-to-point traffic as well as any codeshare or interline partners. This is why it was very puzzling that Virgin took such a gamble underbidding on BMI when the combined airline could have become a much stronger force at what many call BA's Fortress Heathrow. Virgin had complained about BA's dominance in the market, however, BA had only served a small number of domestic routes at the time as they themselves had offloaded their regional operations to Flybe several years earlier. Virgin went toe-to-toe with BA on 3 routes. Manchester was arguably the better one, however BA served this themselves with a near hourly shuttle compared to the 4 flights a day that Virgin were offering. The remedy slots that Virgin had received from BA were restricted to Edinburgh and Aberdeen, limiting the airline's options. Of course, if Virgin wanted to serve other destinations, they were more than welcome to. They'd just have to buy slots from any airline willing to sell some. This was easier said than done, however, as slots at Heathrow are the most expensive in the world. There was never any scale to make Little Red a success, though. It had 4 aircraft based at Heathrow compared to BA's enormous fleet. That was also a double-edged sword, as even if Little Red had more aircraft, it would need more slots in order to fly. Virgin were unwilling to sacrifice more of their own slots, having already used 4 for the Manchester flights, opting to keep these for lucrative long-haul flights. Virgin complained that too many of Little Red's passengers were just travelling point to point rather than connecting onto one of Virgin Atlantic's more expensive and profitable long-haul routes. This is rather ironic considering that when the airline launched, they openly said that the timings would appeal to those who worked in the City of London as well as those who wanted to connect onto the long-haul network. It could be argued that Virgin had little or no intention of seeing Little Red through, and that their aim was just to get more publicity for Virgin being the underdogs that were bullied by BA and the authorities. Frankly, that saga's been going on for 30 odd years and has gotten rather old now. Regardless of that, the failure of Little Red is simply down to Virgin not putting the effort in to develop and expand the airline. The company's statements were correct though. The odds were stacked against them, as Little Red had absolutely no chance of competing against British Airways at Heathrow. Until next time, thank you for watching.